to serve your customers. What your core beliefs are, what you're going to die in a ditch for, not just the kind of generic hygiene factors of highest quality products.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. He's the author of Dim Sum Strategy, Bite-Sized Tools for Building Stronger Brands, and he's the father of Brand DNA, which I love that title, Peter Wilken. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Kirby. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, we're going to chat about branding today, and I think that our audience will love that, and I can't wait. So let's start with Brand DNA. You're the father of Brand DNA. How can brand strategy fuel business success?
Well, if you imagine that your brand is that desired territory in the mind, what you want to stand for in your most valuable customers' minds, and you can articulate that in a way that is relevant to your target audience, that is compelling, it interests them, that's differentiating, stands them apart from their competition, and above all is credible, then why, if you can articulate that in a meaningful way, which we call our DNA, why would you not want to put that at the center of everything that your organization does and says? And more importantly, the does, because brands are built up primarily through the experience of the product and service more than what we'd call the superficial packaging of the logo or visual identity or communications. Although most companies do it the wrong way round, and they'll put the suit on first, the clothing, and then say, look at us, we've changed, but the substance of who they are has not changed at all. You should do it the other way round, make sure that the substance of the experience that you're delivers against your promise. So that's what a brand DNA is. It's like its genetic counterpart. It becomes a strategic template for replicating consistent desired experiences. We developed this like 25 years ago with my company, the Brand Company in Hong Kong. And it has 5 key components, the role, why you exist beyond making money to serve your clients and your customers. The why, if you like, years before Simon Sinek was doing his brilliant marketing of around why, that's what the role is basically, why you exist to serve your customers. What your core beliefs are, what you're going to die in a ditch for, not just the kind of generic hygiene factors of highest quality products, excellence in service, the best company to work for and with, and the box ticking things that are saying, well, if honesty, integrity, all of those kind of things. Well, if you weren't honest and didn't have high integrity, you shouldn't be in business, kind of thing. The beliefs should be really unique to you. And then the core of your DNA was your promise, your overarching commitment to your customers that you're going to deliver in this relevant, credible, differentiating, compelling way. And the benefit then that they derive from you delivering successfully against your promise, it forces you to be customer focused. It forces you to think about the practical segments or 3 or 4 interest groups that you can target to, no more than that. And then the whole thing is wrapped up in how you go about delivering it, which is often the most differentiating aspect of it. So your culture, the way in which you've managed to go about it. And then the last bit was icons and attributes, things that invoke the image of the whole. So, it may not sound like much, but, when we started doing this, and, the brand DNA is the central part of a brand-centered management process, we worked with Shangri-La Hotels, and we helped them develop their brand DNA. It's a collaborative process with your clients that they take ownership of, and you as a strategist act as a kind of ringmaster facilitator. You don't have the magic answer that you give to them from a black box. They create it, you help them create it, and they take ownership of it. And so we did this exercise with Shangri-La Hotels, and they came in thinking that they were expanding into the West. Funnily enough, they were coming to Vancouver, where I'm based now. This was many years ago, 15 years ago or more. And they came to us because we were Western consultants in Hong Kong. And they thought that they had to kind of match or mirror what the big Western hospitality brands were doing here. So if you can imagine, the kind of Boston kind of look that the Ritz-Carlton and others were doing, very masculine, bold brass, blue marble, leather, heavy bank kind of thing. And when we crafted their DNA, it was abundantly apparent that that was absolutely not who they were. Shangri-La was Asian, traditional, feminine. And we ended up articulating it as, an Asian Audrey Hepburn. And of course, it goes much, much deeper than that in terms of how they implement it. But just a quick example of how fundamentally your positioning as a brand and perception can change when you know and you've articulated your brand DNA. So that then influenced Shangri-La's work and has done for the last 20 years.
Yeah, it is amazing. I think once you I love that you call it DNA, because it's kind of that authentic piece of you, and your brand. I mean, you've also talked about the 10 commandments of building a strong, authentic brand, and I love that. So, can you give us kind of a sneak peek of what that is?
Yeah, this is a funny story actually, because I do lots of speaking, or I used to be a bit more active on the speaking circuit than I am now. I do kind of selective talks, but not many. But I did a lot of talks to the universities and postgraduate students, and I would talk to them about branding and brand positioning and all the rest of it. And they would be arguably over impressed by my credentials of having worked for these big agencies, BBDO and Ogilvy and Burnett's, and big brands, you name it, Pepsi's, Cokes, Visas, Disney's, Kodak, BMW's. I've been really, really spoiled. But so they would come up, and one girl came up, really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, said, "Oh, Peter, God, you've worked with all these brands and all of these iconic agencies. It's just what I wanted to do. Tell me everything you know. Tell me everything you know." But in typical Gen Z fashion, then looked at her watch and said, "But I've got to go to my next class in 10 minutes. And I kind of dismissively laughed it off. I thought, oh gosh, I hope I wasn't too rude. But I thought about it in the car on the way back. And I thought, oh God, I wonder whether I could capture everything that was really worth knowing and sharing about building brands in my last 35 or 40 years in 10 minutes. So that's where the 10 commandments came from. I thought 10 minutes with a commandment each to basically share everything I knew. And, the humbling factor is I put it in an ebook and I've timed it at 12 minutes. So I'm only 2 minutes over. So you're putting a lifetime's worth of work into 12 minutes, Kirby. It's a little humbling, but okay, there you go. So anyway, you asked about it. So it starts with things like saying, are you so busy working in your business you have no time to work on it? Because that's typically what most small business owners and entrepreneurs are doing. They're tackling the day-to-day C tasks, so the immediate things in front of them, but never pulling up above the canopy and actually properly investigating where they're at and strategically thinking about their business. Maybe they do that once a year, but not thoroughly enough, or not with a strategic partner or sounding board who's going to ask them the right type of questions. So it talks about, the 10 symptoms of what I call brand strategy malaise, when you can tell things are not quite right, when there's a lack of clarity or focus, or whether you're under your bubble still, you're thinking entirely in your world and not about innovative ideas out of it, when you're being reactive, not proactive. As we talked about, when leaders are being buried in the muck of these day-to-day tasks rather than thinking about bigger strategy, when there's a kind of sense of a lack of direction, or rudderless, who's spinning around in circles, or whether your people there's not quite the unity or the energy or the direction that you need, and when there's a kind of loss of creativity. All of those are symptoms, for example. I can't take you through all 10, but to give you an indication, like the first one is your first commandment is stand for something. It's astonishing how many people, when you ask them, don't actually have a clear point of view of what they stand for. Um, and it's an absurd thing to say, but if you said, I don't mean anything to you, I'm the same as everybody else, buy me, stay with me for the rest of your life, go on, please, I'm cheap today, that is what is, it seems like 75% of the communication and advertising positioning is that. Instead of really standing for something that you, you firmly believe in. So, those are the things. I'm against blanding, which is where we're going. Everyone, we seem to be so swamped, especially in the digital media arena, where producing little ads out on Canva in this formulaic way is everybody's doing it in a samey kind of way, and there's very, very little originality or standout. When you do get it, it's there for everyone to see. The second commandment, and then we'll drop onto another question. Create a promise that appeals to the heart. The strongest brands live in your heart. They're emotionally driven. They're not rational. They're rationalized later. But we still are in a world where increasingly people are saying, unless you can measure it, it's not important. Let's go through all of these clicks. Let's do the latest trend performance marketing, especially in the social media arena, and clicking and Google ads and how they justify their ad spends is on measurement criteria, which frankly is not what builds the best brands. The best brands are emotionally driven, and they own a place in your heart as well as your head, but heart first. So that's a couple of examples.
Yeah, those are great. That's really exciting, Peter. So, one of the things that we talked about before we actually started recording is that you've got a project that you're excited that you're working on, and that people could learn a bit more about. What can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, no, well, thanks for asking that, Kirby. The project that really excites me at the moment, as I kind of get older, you can see my kind of grey hair was portraying my the number of times I've been around the circle on this. I'm moving more and more away from my direct eat what you kill consulting business, which I enjoy and it keeps your hand in, but really wanting to give back one and also scale something that will be enduring and lasting. So I've created over the last 2 years the Lighthouse Brand Strategy Academy, which is a virtual academy, a brand strategy academy, and its mission is basically to democratize world-class, effective brand strategy targeted at small business owners, solopreneurs, and as I found have come to the light, other brand strategists, aspiring brand strategists who want to level up their strategic skills. So it really does make it affordable, accessible, and actionable. And it's a real practical course. It's not one of these academic courses. It's a kind of comprehensive, stepwise approach through the 4Ds brand-centered management process, focusing on the first two: how to define your brand DNA by doing a proper discovery report first, and then instructing on how you actually go about developing your brand DNA, either with yourself or a partner, or with a group of people in a collaborative workshop way. So that's what's really got me excited, and what I found as people have come into it, and they've given me some terrific feedback of anything they say is too comprehensive. You need to kind of make it easy for us. So I've also kind of eased the path all the way through. The main program is called the Chief Brand Officer, or the CBO Masterclass, and it basically teaches people how to operate at that C level as a Chief Brand Officer, where a Chief Brand Officer is also often the CEO. They're one and the same. They're the best combinations. But the Chief Brand Officer part takes responsibility for determining, discovering, understanding the real value in the brand, articulating it through your brand DNA, and then bringing it to life through everything that the organization does, from corporate strategy to internal culture and communications, to products and services, to systems and structures, to external marketing communications. That's what the Chief Brand Officer does. So this is what the program teaches them. in a practical way that raises their game, allows them to add value for the business owners so that they don't have to invest in multiples of tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire an expensive brand consultant like me or an agency. They can do it for a fraction of that, for a few $100s. And for the solopreneurs, it's the same kind of proposition. They can help position themselves. Their personal brand is often the same as their business brand. And for the brand strategist, helps them add value that they can pass on through to their clients, as well as also shaping their own businesses. Thanks for asking. That's my passion at the moment. It's been going for 18 months. I have my own little community and circle around it. I have 53 people having gone through it now. So, yeah, tried and tested, and yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And where can folks find more information about that?
Well, I don't know whether you've got show notes in this at the moment, but if they go to my website, Peter Wilken, that's Wilken with an E at the end, .com, they can go into the online courses section, or they can just DM me or email me, and I'll send them details of the the full landing page, and they can listen to the testimonials of the lighthouses who are in there already. It's much more persuasive than me telling people how great it is. Listen to the people who've taken it themselves. It's much more persuasive.
That's great. All right. One final question for you is just, you've been doing this a long time. You mentioned that you've worked with a lot of different brands. What are some basic universal principles of branding that resonate across sectors and cultures?
It's a great question. I would say there are kind of golden rules. One of them I just mentioned in the first commandments: be clear about what you stand for. Have a clear, compelling, relevant, and differentiating promise, something that means that you can own. Don't try and own too many things. Don't try and be everything to everybody. It's all about promises. So the first thing is to have that relevant, credible, compelling promise. The second thing is to deliver that promise consistently, because if you deliver a quality product in one place, but the next time it's stale and out of date or whatever it was, you're going to get defined by your lowest common experience, not your highest. So consistency is the key thing. And above all, which I found now has been a challenge in this overcrowded communication world, is to be compelling, is to interest people into your brand and engage them. My old boss, David Ogilvy, used to say, you can't bore people into buying your product. You can only interest them into it. And I find there's, those brands that aspire to the intelligence of their users and suck you in because they interest you in are so much more powerful than the ones who try and beat you about the head with repetitive messages that bore you and irritate you. So a bit of a long answer to your question, but hopefully that was helpful.
No, it's super helpful. This has been great, Peter. I appreciate you taking the time. We'll have to do it again sometime, okay?
Yeah, anytime. Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you, and have a great day and the rest of the week.
You too. Cool. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.
Take care.